to Michigan and have a change of
Yeah.
weather again, and then come back down here and have another change of weather. That'll be great.
If you wouldn't mind telling us what our.
I don't know how to, I don't know, like.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
just
they,
the weather
yeah,
change. Yeah, that won't.
so channel 1 is down. But like, maybe because they don't pay attention.
Oh, baby.
So you.
Hey,
Thank you all for joining us here today for our community budget meeting for District 5. Very happy to have you all come out and have your voices heard tonight. This is hosted by the Budget and Evaluation Department. I'm Leah Price, a Budget and Management Analyst. We also have Leah Jackie, another Budget Management Analyst, and John Decker, our Director. Of course, Tammy Thurman, and Jackie Boone with City of Greensboro, and Chris Marriott, somewhere, solid waste director. As we'll call all the things. So for our process tonight, we're going to have Tammy Thurman come up and say hello. Then we'll have some district updates and updates from City of Greensboro. We'll go over some budget highlights, and then we'll talk about the strategic priorities that hopefully you all got a chance to participate with the activity. And then, of course, we'll have an opportunity for comments and questions from our community members.
Yeah, well, we turn off the lights.
Yeah, once Councilwoman Tammy Thurman will come up and say hello, and then we'll get the lights turned down for so you guys can actually see.
Welcome. Tammy Thurman, District 5 City Council Rep. It's good to see some faces that I know and some new faces, and welcome. It's great to have you all here. I'm glad we've got a nice little intimate crowd so we can ask questions and have open dialogue and discussions. This is the first since I have been a city council person that we're actually having these meetings in the districts. So it's great to get input from the people that are paying the taxes on, what's important to them and, get an exchange of ideas. So welcome. I appreciate y'all being here. I'll be here for questions during and after. If you did not yet take or get your 3 orange dots to sticker on the board, your top 3 priorities, please be sure and make sure you get those after the meeting, and so we can get your input on that as well. So welcome. Thanks for being here. John Decker is coming up next.
Now I'm just going to shut the lights off.
Oh, he's going to shut the lights off, and then there you go.
There you go.
I didn't bring any popcorn.
We'll be hearing from Jackie Boone with the great.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out this evening. I'm Jackie Boone. I'm the Chief Creative Economy Officer for City of Greensboro, which is the city's Office for Art and Culture. We are committed to providing equitable services and art and cultural resources in every community in Greensboro. So I wanted to share with you tonight about some things that we've been doing in your district and what we're continuing to do this year. So just a bit of background about my office and how we began. So in 2018, City Council adopted a cultural master plan, a 10-year master plan for arts and culture for the city. The community really wanted a guiding force to really set the standard for where art and culture should go, and also to pivot and take a different turn by providing more access and equitable opportunities for everyone within the city. Some of the key pillars of that 10-year master plan and the goals is to really identify culturally specific and emerging artists and cultural organizations and develop initiatives that support their growth, their resilience, and their reach. Another key point or goal is to support neighborhoods to broaden and diversify arts experiences, and to lastly expand the role of public art as key elements to enhance and celebrate Greensboro's built environment, identity, and sense of place. So that's what I want to be focusing on this evening, how we are supporting neighborhoods and broadening arts experiences within your district. We have a program called Neighborhood Arts. There are 4 components: residencies, where we marry an artist and embed them in different communities and partner them with community leaders, and together they become curators. They decide together what type of art experiences and opportunities that you see and experience within your district. So that's something I'll focus on. Another portion of the program is something called curated programming, where we do an additional follow-up and get more intense and specified artistic projects. And creative allies, where we take another artist and pair them with a city department to address a concern or need within communities. Again, the community is the center of attention. So in 2022, you guys may be familiar with this. There was a 6-month residency in the Random Woods community led by artist Emilio Mars. This included community engagement, programming, and a culminating visual arts installation in the neighborhood. Emilio received $22,000 to support residency activities along with in-kind use of city facilities. Here, Mars hosted drawings based at Alderman Elementary School and worked with the students, park users, and residents to design original artwork for the Random Woods Park basketball court and their backboards. We're continuing to build upon that momentum because people really enjoyed that artwork. So currently in 2024, we have the same resident artist. He's coming back to the Random Woods community to do additional work in that same area. So here, let's see, he's going to continue building upon what he did by curating and decorating the garbage cans, the park benches, and the park tables. He's working again with the students at Alderman Elementary School, 4th and 5th graders. He has recently gathered about 49 pieces of works and ideas of inspiration from the young people, and he's going to use those works to inspire what he's going to continue to build upon in the same park area. In addition to that, what he's working on, there were 3 community leaders who were very instrumental in working together with the artist and giving him what he needed and cultivating an atmosphere of community and supporting him. Ann Dean, Laquita Fry, and Barber Washington, 3 community leaders who worked with him to cultivate the programming. In addition to what he's doing in the park, he's also going to curate and create personal portraits for them to be displayed within the community. So those are just a couple of the examples that we're doing in your district. Again, we are here to service you and partner with you. We believe in having a vibrant city, and you are part of what makes that community, this city, vibrant. So I look forward to connecting with you, seeing you outside. If you have ideas, please let me know. You can contact me here. But again, thank you so much for coming out tonight, and we enjoy working with you.
Yes, all familiar.
Thank you. Okay, so now we will start to get into our budget highlights. So, what is a budget? A budget is a proposed plan for raising and spending money for specified programs, functions, activities, or objectives during a fiscal year. But more importantly, it's a prioritization tool. It reflects choices about what a government will and will not do. It's a planning tool for projecting future financing and issues on the horizon. It's a regulatory tool. All municipalities in North Carolina are legally required to have a balanced budget, and there's also many accounting standards, among other things, that we must follow as a city. And as a communications tool, it is how elected officials and city staff let residents know how we're spending tax dollars and other revenue. Now we will go to our Budget 101 video.
Welcome to the City of Greensboro's budget process. Let's learn how our city government prepares its annual operating budget. A city budget is a proposed plan for how we will raise and spend money throughout the fiscal year. It determines the city's property tax rate and is a critical task that shapes the future of our community. In Greensboro, about 40% of the city's revenue come from sales and property taxes. Another 30% comes from user charges, such as water, parking fees. The remaining funds come from various sources, including state and federal government grants. A little more than 40% of the city's expenses are for personnel. It takes some 3,300 people to support all the city's operations, from police to parks, waste collection to water service. The budget also covers operational costs, such as materials for treating our water supply and for filling potholes. The city also sets aside funds to pay down its debt, supporting the 10-year capital improvement program, which plans for more expensive projects like new buildings, fire trucks, and stormwater improvements. Here's how the City of Greensboro budget is developed. By law, municipal governments in North Carolina must adopt a balanced budget every year. The city's fiscal year begins on July 1st, but budget development begins months in advance. In the fall, the the city's budget and finance officials begin reviewing forecasts to help look for changes in the economy that may impact the city's funding sources. Over the winter, city departments review their work plans for the coming year and submit service enhancement requests. These are essentially requests for additional funds to add new services or employees in the coming year. During this time, the City Council also meets to establish its budget priorities, which it expresses through policy decisions, budget guidelines, and recommendations. These priorities represent council members' values and aspirations of our community, and they are the guideposts the city manager and budget officers will use to further develop the budget. Throughout the spring, departments will present their proposed budgets for review. They will also review the capital improvements plan. After months of deliberations, in May, the city manager presents a recommended budget to council members. Then it's time for city council members to have more detailed discussions about their goals and priorities. By law, local governments must provide a public hearing on the budget. This time allows the public to give council and the city manager feedback on the presented budget. The fiscal year 2024-25 budget public hearing is scheduled for June 4th, 2024. Finally, the council will adopt the budget in June, just in time for the new fiscal year to begin in July. The council will also adopt the new capital improvements program, set the property tax rate, and adopt any new or adjusted rates during that same meeting. Want to try your hand at creating a city budget? Try the Balancing Act game, where you get to set your priorities based on the real city budget figures. Remember, your voice matters. Let your council members know how you want to see the city spend its money. Check out the city budget and the capital improvements program and play the Balancing Act, all at greensboro-nc.gov/budget.
So we're really excited about this particular
Don't worry about that. When the Budget and Evaluation Office is not working on developing the next year's fiscal budget, we are also serving as internal consultants for a lot of departments by doing studies on various things, whether it's management or fee studies. We also help adjust and amend the budget throughout the year. And we also work closely with people in culture, otherwise known as human resources, whenever a department is requesting a budget position change or addition that would impact the budget. Okay. So what services does the City of Greensboro provide? We divide our services up by 4 service areas. Of course, there's public safety, police, fire, Guilford Metro 911, community services, parks and rec, libraries, infrastructure is going to be water resources, solid waste, engineering and inspections, and general government is more of the administrative side of the city. So budget and evaluation is in general government, people and culture, as I mentioned, and finance, communications, all of your kind of core departments in most organizations. The roles of counties and cities, there is overlap, but there's also generally some specific duties that one or the other does. So for a city, we are in charge of managing the streets and sidewalks, street lighting, traffic engineering, and some provide water and sewer services. Of course, the City of Greensboro does, but not all do. For the county, they are more of an arm of the state where they are providing social services and public health, public school, tax collection, court system, etc. But then we both provide parks and economic development, law enforcement. The police is the city, the sheriff's office is the county, and we both provide inspections. So for a look at what a list of services that the county provides, and we've talked about some of them, but they're also animal services, veteran services, family justice center, and again, they collect taxes and handle revaluations of properties. For our budget, our operating budget for our current fiscal year is $751.3 million. We can see this divided up into many different funds, but we group them by fund type. So the general fund is where we account for the resources that go into really our core objectives in the city, like police and fire, and again, many of those general government service area departments I mentioned, like budget and finance. We also then have our enterprise funds. These operate more like businesses. They're meant to be self-sustaining. Probably the best example is our water resources fund, where the city provides water and residents pay a fee for it. It comes back as a revenue. Those revenues then are used to continue to provide that service. Then we have our internal service funds. This is how the city accounts for basically our internal businesses, the goods and services we provide internally. So an example would be our network services fund, which is managed by information technology. And there's a fee model for charging departments back for our Microsoft Office licenses. We also have our equipment services fund, where we maintain a fleet of vehicles, and departments will pay a lease fee back to that fund to lease the vehicle, which then helps pay for the vehicle. That's our debt service fund. That's where we budget for payments on our long-term debts, like bonds. And then special revenue funds. So this is when we have a specific sources of revenues that are there for specific purposes. One example is the State Highway Allocation Fund, also known as the PAL bill. That is money we receive from the state that we can only use on streets. There's also, it's not really in District 5, but there's our special tax districts like College Hill neighborhood and Dunleavy, where those residents pay a little bit higher taxes, but the money from those the revenue from those taxes goes back to that special tax district fund, and then those funds can only be used to improve those tax districts. And finally, we also have our special project funds. These you will not see reflected in the budget document. A lot of them operate outside of our fiscal year, which is July 1st to June 30th. They're generally grant funds, bond funds, and projects that we do with those funds. They work a little differently, but there is a lot of funds set aside in those areas that are worth mentioning, certainly. So when we're looking at that total budget number, again, this is looking at all of our funds, all of our operating funds. About a little more than half of it is infrastructure, and that's largely attributed to that water resources fund, and infrastructure is quite expensive. So, then it's public safety is about a quarter of it, and then the rest is split between our other service areas. And for total budget revenues, user fees is about 30% of our revenues. Again, the water resources, as an example, or still property taxes, sales taxes play a large role. And then there's also our intergovernmental revenue, which is, again, the kind of funding that comes from the state, or the county shares some expenses with us for providing Guilford Metro 911 or libraries. And then, of course, there's the other category, is what it sounds like, and fund balance, which the easiest way to explain that is really the city's savings account, and generally we have to appropriate a little bit of it to help balance the budget. Now, when we just look at the general fund, again, this is where many of our core services operate out of. You see where infrastructure goes down to being about a quarter of the budget, and public safety moves up to being just under half. And again, you see about the same spread with general government and debt service and community services. And just to make sure the general fund total is $403 billion. And again, now we're looking at the dollar bill for just the general fund, and you can see that big switch where user charges is down at the bottom for 3% essentially, and then property taxes and sales taxes makes up the bulk of that revenue for the general fund. Our city property tax rate right now is 67.25 cents per $100 of property valuation. That 67.25 cents can be broken down as 62.75 goes to the general fund, 3.5 goes to the Greensboro Transit Agency, and 1 goes to the Nussbaum Housing Fund. Last year, during this current fiscal year, we increased the tax rate by 4 cents, but the year prior to that, it decreased it by 3 cents, so it's been a net increase of 1 cent for the last couple of years, and a lot of times you'll see tax changes happening around the time where the county carries out a property revaluation. And the last one of those was in January 2022. Okay, so now we're going to talk about the strategic priorities. Again, I hope you guys got a chance to kind of read about them over there and do our activities with our read out. So this is all about, we've got a strategic framework that staff has been working really hard to develop. It's got a 5-year focus on a set of priorities. It connects a lot of our departmental master plans, and many of those are projected out for like 20 years or so. So this helps us keep track of it on a 5-year basis. Some of those plans are the Planning Department's GSO 2040 Comprehensive Plan, Parks and Recreation Plan to Play. So this kind of helps them bring everything together in a strategic way, so that way we can also tie it to the budget and build that budget out with strategy and vision. Okay, so let's see, your top 3 overall as a group. Safest city is number 1, 10 deaths. And then let's see, oh thank you. Abundance of attainable housing with 6 in second place. And then we got a tie for most skilled workforce and easiest place to do business. Let's see. So we're looking at how the city has worked to move the needle on these priorities, or their most significant ones for this crowd, is the safest city. Again, that's not just police and fire, and safety means a lot of things. It also means our residents' well-being. One of the things we've done is really the city has been a national leader in our behavioral health response team that work alongside the police force to help handle calls with people that have their mental illness may be involved in that call. And of course, we've also worked, we're very happy about that. Of course, we also try hard to pay our police and fire officers well. And then there's also things like environmental justice, where today there was a council work session about the Bingham Park restoration that's going on. So that all kind of plays into that. For our most skilled workforce, that we have one of those non-operating funds I mentioned is our workforce development fund, which is kind of like the city underwriting workforce development. There's a lot of programming through workforce development for some soft skills and hard skills. Like you can go and work on your resume, or you can go and get specific job training, which will be increasingly important as we have Toyota coming and other economic development opportunities that are coming through. Let's see, for our abundance of attainable housing, of course, this is what it sounds like. We want to have a good supply of affordable, quality housing for everyone when possible. Some of the ways we worked to improve this for the city is see the pallet shelters that the city's done 2 winters now to help protect unsheltered individuals from the elements in the winter. We also have housing services where we provide home buyer education and counseling, and rent, mortgage, and utility assistance. And many of our activities related to attainable housing are really fall into the capital category, which you can see those laid out more clearly in the capital improvement plan, which is also known as the CIP. You can find that online as well to see some more of the projects going into that. And we also have several non-operating funds that play into programming for housing, like our community development block grant that funds that we use every year. All right. Well, again, you're at the last one, so we're probably going to take it off the slide. But yes, thank you for coming. I know some of you've been here for all of them. We appreciate you coming in and being heard every time. So we'll stay tuned for next year when we do this again. But there are still some other dates that are important to know that are coming up. On May 14th, the manager's recommended budget is presented to council and also made available to the public on the same date, where you can at the very least view it online, or you can go up to City Hall and go to the clerk's office and flip through a physical copy if you'd like. On June 4th is when we have the public hearing. It's for people to come up as speakers on the floor to express their thoughts on the budget, and then the budget is set to be adopted on June 18th. So all of these meetings take place in the City Council chambers, which are downtown at 300 West Washington Street. And those meetings generally start at 5:30 p.m. So with all that being said, thank you for listening to our presentation, and we now open up the floor for comments and questions. We've got about 30 minutes to do this, so we want to try to keep it to about 2 to 3 minutes or so per speaker, just to respect everyone's time and give everyone a chance to speak. So, and please come up and use the microphone so people at home can hear you as well.
We can probably go ahead and turn on the lights up front too.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, I have a couple of questions. I'm here representing UE 150, the Greensboro City Workers Union. And so one of my questions is, I know you said that the city manager will present his budget. Is that a public hearing where the folks can come and sit and listen to that?
Yes, yeah, that's just a regular scheduled council.
And also for the budget hearing, do folks have to sign up to speak? Is that an online process, or how does that work?
You do have to sign up ahead of time to be a public speaker. Might need some help for the cutoff for when people need to sign up to be a speaker.
So you can speak on any agenda item, and the public hearing for the budget will be a specific agenda item. You can sign up until 6 o'clock, I believe, before any meeting. And there's also, well, you can do that in person at the City Hall, or you can do it online as well.
Okay. And I love this presentation. I thought it was really well put together, but I didn't hear any mention about the city workers. So I was kind of wondering, where do they fit into this as far as their pay, the minimum wage, and that kind of thing?
Yeah, well, salary, salary and benefits make up about 40% of the budget. So, I mean, that's the best way to see our employees in the budget. And every budget cycle, a huge part of it is compensation changes and trying to make sure everyone is being paid fairly. We've raised the minimum wage to 18 now, and I think we're going
$15.91 now.
$18.91.
Yes, and then we're working on transitioning that higher incrementally, but still also have to think about things like raising taxes to pay for raising
So
the other.
I guess what fund does that come out? Like the water department per se, meaning that they generate revenue, does their raises and things come out of that fund?
Yeah. Generally, positions are budgeted in the area they work in. So for budget and evaluation, all of our salary and benefits is coming out of the general fund. And water resources employees, all their salary and benefits will be coming out of the water resources fund.
Thank you so much. I don't want to take a whole bunch of time. I think that's my 3 minutes. Thank you. That was really helpful.
Okay, I know somebody else has got to have questions. Go. Go.
My question, well, several, pertaining to transportation, GTA, and park. Number one, I'd like to know where we find the numbers that the city participation of park.
I believe to my knowledge, the best place to find that would be actually looking in the budget document. We have for each department or fund page, we have performance measures where we track the reported numbers from the department. I can't guarantee off the top of my head that is one of the measures, but I know that is one place you can find that information. They may also provide some information on their site, but try to get. John, can you? Sorry,
Yeah.
Can you give any other areas for the best?
Yeah, so the city doesn't operate part. That's a separate authority.
Well, I understand that,
Yeah.
but they participate in the park. They have representatives of park, and they
We partner with Park.
fund part of Park?
I don't think so.
It's a rental, when you rent a car at the airport.
Park itself is funded by
that's
an
what
additional
funds Park,
fee
yeah.
for rentals.
There aren't any city tax dollars
No.
in Park.
All right, we'll move on to GTA. How can we justify, and why we have the bus depot down there, Gavin Bus Depot, right?
Yeah.
All right, the budget on it is on page, and I'm off the top of my head, 147 or something.
Yeah, okay.
The regular GTA budget is on 129 to 131.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they?
So the actual maintenance and operation of the facility has historically been done by the transportation department. Now that we've developed
Sorry.
now that we've developed a separate transit department, that's one of the things we're evaluating is where that maintenance and operation of that facility itself should be housed. So that's a newly created department. That's one thing we'll be shifting. But the expenses related to it have come out of the general fund, and that's why it's captured there.
Well, how can we justify the cost, the pure cost deficit in the operations of GTA as opposed to the full cost operating as opposed to income? We're talking about $4 million income and $40 to $50 million in cost.
Yeah, absolutely. The majority of that is offset with federal funding and other non-city funds.
That's a terrible answer.
I
pay federal taxes too, is my point.
Absolutely.
So it makes no difference to me.
So the justification.
Still our money.
Yeah. The justification is, again, one of the priorities is most connected cities, help connect folks to economic opportunity. Regarding the city's portion of GTA funding, we believe that is a high priority for the city to make sure that folks have access to transportation across the city.
Well, the problem with transportation that I see, all you have to do is go here on Market Street, go right here on Friendly, go to Battleground, go where you want to go, and you have the buses running, boom, 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 one or two people in the buses. That's just ridiculous.
There are undoubtedly some buses that have lower ridership than we would like. We always try to increase ridership. We also have buses that have so many people on them that they have to run two buses at a time. So that's part of the ongoing.
Stop running them out Market and Friendly and Battleground, then run them wherever those routes are.
Yeah.
I have no trouble with providing bus service.
Yes.
But it's the part of when you're riding two people on a bus that will ride 40 people.
Absolutely, and that's
It's
a
ridiculous.
continuous evaluation for where routes need to go, how can we improve them. And we recently launched a cross-town route.
Yes.
One of the reasons that folks have said they don't ride the bus as much is because you had to go to the depot before you went across town. So improvements to the system are always necessary to look at.
Well, in that same vein, about the electric buses. Everywhere that I'm reading, Asheville, North Carolina, Washington, D.C., half of the buses won't work. They're costing tons of money, more than they should have. What's our position on electric buses right now? How are we doing?
We have added electric buses to our system for the past few years. I haven't heard extensive additional costs related to what we expected.
They actually save
Yeah.
money. The maintenance, we're finding that the electric buses that we have are saving us maintenance money and costs and gas, etc. We have not had that experience, and I think at this point we are looking at continuing to expand because we are saving significant amounts of money in the hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Where can we get a copy of that? Because I'm not disputing what you're saying, but I am. I guess you can
Larry,
say, I don't
can
believe
you-
what
Yeah,
you're
we
saying.
can. We can start. The biggest issue we're having with electric buses now is finding.
Yeah.
Everybody wants
Red
them.
Light because Proterra went out of business because they run off our federal tax dollars.
Well, we're having trouble finding them because so many people want them. The demand for them is at an all-time high. All cities are moving towards electric buses. So that's our biggest.
You can probably buy some from Asheville because they're not real happy with ours. Well, I don't think Washington DC is either.
Well, I'll check the classifieds, but right now, that's what we're very happy with electric buses. We're very happy with.
Well, Carl, if we get a breakdown of what we spent on,
Yeah.
what they're costing.
And for that question and all others, we're making sure to capture those, and so we can take them back to folks to get the appropriate responses that we can. Unfortunately, we don't know it all right here today, but we will document that.
Is this better? Hi, for folks who have not seen me at all of these meetings. My name is Terrell. I'm a community organizer with American Friends Service. Check this out. It's better. So my question is, and for reference, I live in District 2, but as a concerned citizen and an organizer in the community, we've been talking to folks around the issue of housing. How can we really get to the root of this mass homelessness issue that we find ourselves in? And over the months of our work, we found that a lot of it is perpetuated by high rates of evictions. For folks who might not know, in 2022 alone, there's about 16,000 evictions that happened within the year that were filed. What really helped people during that was this program called Teams. I don't know if you're familiar, Councilwoman, with that, but it's tenant education, advocacy, mediation. It's a program that's been funded by ARPA funds with the county and UNCG. It's been really helpful in terms of giving people connected with legal resources, kind of help them fight off their evictions and stay housed. And a lot of cities have moved to models like this to help kind of curtail rising cost of rents, evictions, and tenant rights, which is kind of the big issue and crux for many communities. So as we're thinking about all these revenues of money and priorities as we come into this budget conversation, I'm curious if you or other council people have looked at how we can prioritize some of the money in the budget to do some of this preventative measures around evictions and help more people stay in their homes proactively. So I'll start there.
I'm going to come up this way because he wants to be able to pick me up on the mic. So
Switch up.
on that. Excuse me, and I'm sorry for coughing. I'm not contagious. Evictions and the housing crisis is an ongoing thing that we continue to fight. Our neighborhood development department has worked very hard over the years in terms of housing and supporting housing, running programs, ARPA funds, etc., to help people stay in their houses. We are limited in what we have funds to do, like everyone, and we are focusing a large part on helping people helping homeowners not get priced out of their home, especially seniors. I know we've got a program that we piloted just last year for seniors on property tax increases and helping them, offering credits and rebates to help them stay in their homes if they couldn't afford to pay the increases in property taxes. We're also working with other people on, we're finding that a lot of people that are having housing challenges would actually be better off if they could own a property. And that for many, many people, the actual payment on a small house, if we had more small houses, is cheaper than paying rent. It also helps them build wealth for them and their family. So we've got a number of down payment assistance programs where we are educating future homeowners and helping them pay a down payment on their homes, and that's for forgivable loans.
Right.
In terms of actually helping renters stay in their apartments, we have some funds for that. We don't have a lot of funds for that in our budget, I'll be honest, and it's something we can certainly look at, and the housing department can look at, but we are limited. We also have to pay attention. Much of the housing funds that we get are associated with very strict rules from the federal and state government. I am not an expert in those rules, but I'm happy to get you more information on exactly what we have access to and what we can do.
I would love that, especially any pieces around what specifically around eviction prevention. And to your point of I love there's these programs that are helpful for people who are able to buy homes. You talk about elderly folks who need that help with
staying in their home.
Yeah. A big misconception I'm trying to help with is a lot of elderly people are on stipends or fixed income or rental things where that's not obtainable for them.
Right.
So it's still kind of when we think of that population as a whole, how we're not looking at them as a monolith, but looking at both spectrums, homeowners and the renters that still need that help.
That additional assistance. Absolutely. Thank you for asking the question.
Hello. My name is Tanisha. I live here in District 5, and I also have a question about housing. I am an educator here in the county, and so some of the things that I come across in my position is that sometimes our children are hugely impacted by the evictions, but also their families are impacted by the cost of rent and the increasing cost of rent. Personal story for me, I am educated. My family is not in we're middle class. However, my father called me to let me know that he was 2 months behind in his rent. And so this is something that I say is not just impacting our low-income people, but all of us as rent continues to rise. So my question is, we've used federal money for rental assistance in the past, and you just mentioned about the budget. But we also know that money has helped over 2,600 families across our district and in Greensboro. And so my question is there any part of this upcoming budget that invests in helping families struggling with the high cost of housing across the city by investing in a permanent rental assistance program? So we've seen counties that have done that added that, and have created documents and applications for people to apply for that. And so there are models that can help us here in this county. So that's my question. Thank you.
I am not. I'm not aware at this time of a program like that that's being considered. I will tell you that at one of our recent council meetings where we were discussing working with the folks that are experiencing homelessness or the unhoused community, that there was discussion about a pilot program for minimum basic income.
Oh.
Thank you for finding that word. I know that there was, the IRC did a little experiment with that a couple of years ago, and it was very, very successful. The cost of supporting those experiencing homelessness or those that are unhoused is unbelievably high. And so we're looking at many different options. I asked that we have a pilot program or look at what it would take to start a program. I don't know where we are. I'm hoping we can get a pilot program in this upcoming budget, but it hasn't gotten to council yet, and I don't know if it will make the cut this year, but it is something that we've talked about and something that we're looking at, because I think there are a host of people that, there but for the grace of God and one car repair bill. If they could get that car repair bill paid so that they could, for a month or two and get back up on their feet, they wouldn't be unhoused and they could continue on with the rent. It's not an answer for all of our unhoused population, but there's a piece of it, and there's no one answer for our unhoused population. It's going to take a host of different approaches. And that's one that we've talked about running a pilot So that's kind of the best response I can give you on that at this point.
Yeah, I appreciate that, especially, you referencing the basic minimum income. I guess my thing is that when we're thinking about some of the priorities that are on the board, and I'm not necessarily talking about those who are already unhoused.
Right.
I'm talking about those that are in these positions of fluctuation. And I think about how keeping, especially from my point of view, children and their families and their homes, that's a stability issue, that's safety, that's the economy. So I would like to see that become a part of the priority, because housing, it has so many strings attached to all of these different places.
Absolutely. So thank you. Back on the way. Margaret.
Margie,
I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, my official name is Margaret. I don't like calling me Margie. Well, Tammy knows that I'm an advocate for health care, and housing is a determinant of health, and it should be falling in the category of safety as well, because it does keep people safe. And I think you've answered my first question about what it costs to support people that become homeless, and you said it's a tremendous amount. So I was wondering if the city has looked into, or will look into, the way other cities have actually saved money by creating programs that provide eviction court counseling. Have you looked into that?
That has not come under us. The county was providing eviction court counseling at one point under their human services, and this is where it gets kind of gray between where the county line is and where the city line is, and making sure that we coordinate. I think we're in the process of doing a better job of coordinating now with the county on some of these issues. But I know in the past, some of that has gone through the county, and that's part of their program.
Well, I have a statistic here that Baltimore saved $35 million by allocating $5.7 million to their eviction court counseling program. So that seems like a pretty good
return on investment.
Return on investment.
So I'll make you feel better. I'm the last person in Hartford. So
it's okay. You can ask one.
And so I'm Cece. I am the program director for American Friends Service Committee. And like Terrell said, we spent some time trying to figure out ways to reduce that number that we heard. Because when we heard 16,000 evictions per year, or 16,000 families served evictions per year, that is it's an unfathomable number to me for just our small county. And what I do on every Wednesday afternoon is I take a group of faith leaders and anyone else who wants to come every Wednesday afternoon at 2 o'clock to eviction court. Most people haven't been there, so you don't know what it looks like for someone facing eviction. The fear, the hopelessness, like you can just see it. And on top of that, the county provided $2.2 million of ARPA funding to resource this program that has legal aid and mediation there, but they're only there for 2 days a week. And evictions are served, the court cases they're 4 days a week. And so one of the things that is really great about this table being out there is that they provide information on how they can help tenants navigate the fears of court. And that's great. There's another part of preventing evictions, and that is tenants knowing their rights. And so we asked the county, because we've been to the county ones too, if they were able to have a packet of resource information that could coincide with when they serve summons for court for eviction. But after listening to other people, in the room, other suggestions, we realized there's even one step before that, and that is making sure that tenants know their rights, know what resources are available. And so that brings me to my question of how can the city make sure that tenants, renters, because almost half of the city are renters, how can we make sure that they understand their rights and maybe prevent even getting to the point where they need mediation or legal representation for eviction?
The Human Rights Department and the Human Rights Commission does a fair amount of work with tenants and landlords and problems and that area. I think this would be a great project for the Human Rights Commission to take on in terms of coming up with educational opportunities, in terms of, what can be provided to apartment owners and landlords, of what they can give out with a lease, perhaps, or something of that nature. But I think it would be great if we could have our human resources that work in this area, that get involved in the disputes between landlords and tenants, and have that commission help us and see where we can be most effective with that, would be my suggestions, Easy.
Hello, I'm Catherine Manning. Hi. So our budget right now is $751 million. And we keep talking about housing as being, or affordable housing as being something that is desperately needed in the city. And thank you guys for coming. That was really good. But it seems to me that don't we own some buildings from, let's say, from someone being removed from their homes, or homes that are somewhat damaged, people aren't living in? I mean, does the city own any of those buildings? Is there a point where they become property that the city has? It just seems to me that it's taking a very long time for us to be able to build the affordable housing units that we need. And I'm just trying to think outside of the box. Where else can we find buildings that could be renovated, for this need? I just came today from Caring Services, which is a really incredible group there in High Point, and they just opened another house. It's a transitional location for people who've had drug addictions, and they've gone into places to be helped, and then they put them into this housing, and they help people in that transition learn how to take care of their monies, how to prepare themselves for going out. And they can stay there from up to like 90 days to 2 years. So, and they have now built they have 82 beds now. I mean, they're doing a really good job. And it just seems to me that there must be buildings here in Greensboro where they're not occupied, like even office buildings, where it would be cheaper, because it seems like every budget is like $30 million that we want. We did that with the referendum, and the tax increase came from that. And it seems like we should be able to take over these buildings. There's a lot of creative people in Greensboro, and make some temporary housing for people who are losing their homes, or their apartment amounts are being raised. There's got to be something, because I drive by buildings all the time and they're vacant, office buildings. I'm just thinking outside of the box. So, thank you.
It's a great question, Catherine. In order for us to do something with those buildings, we would have to buy them and invest in them, because they're not our buildings. The spare buildings that we have are in odd locations, and we are endeavoring to sell many of the buildings because they're not suitable. But we could take that dead building for us, somebody can use it for their business or whatever, and then we can invest that money and keep property taxes down. So it's one of the ways in this past budget we've talked about, for odd projects and things that we needed, get rid of whatever surplus land we have and we can't turn into something, sell it and use that money for one-time capital improvement projects and that kind of thing. You know, certainly, some of the buildings, one of the things that our neighborhood development group is doing, which has been remarkably successful, is, Larry, what's the name of it? Where
Conservatorship.
Yeah, receivership.
Receivership, thank you. Is you all see houses that are around town that have been boarded up for years, and we can't get those property owners to do anything with them. They've been to minimum housing multiple times for years. They accrue penalties, but nothing's happening. With Michelle Kennedy's help in the neighborhood development, we started a receivership program. Interestingly, and what that program is if you're not willing to fix up your building, somebody else is going to. And then they get the rights to rent it out and have income from it and that kind of thing. What's interesting is of all the buildings, and I don't know, there have been, I think 20 plus, I'm not sure of the exact count, don't hold me to that, that have come up for receivership. Remarkably, before it ever goes to court and a receiver is assigned, the landlord suddenly fixes up their building and it becomes a usable housing unit. I'm very interested in looking at, can we do that with commercial buildings that have been boarded up? And there's some different rules that don't make it profitable right now, but we are talking to the legislature to see if there's some tweaks that could be made. Because I don't know about you all, but especially in this district, we got lots of boarded up buildings and empty buildings that have fallen in that are just, need to be either bulldozed down or they need to be fixed, one or the other. So I'm very interested in pursuing that because all of a sudden, then these buildings get usable again. And so, particularly in some of the areas towards downtown, we've had great success with the receivership program and getting empty buildings back to functioning and providing housing for people again. So that's been a real win for us, and thanks to neighborhood development because they're kind of first in the state doing it, and now we've got lots of communities around the state that are reaching out to copy that program because it's been so successful.
So in the budget, I'm just wondering, because the pallet program was so incredible. I mean, it didn't cover all the homeless. It's very upsetting to go downtown and see homeless people laying on the streets. And especially now since we have Tanker, which is so incredible. I mean, and I think the city council is doing an incredible job at bringing businesses here. It used to be we don't have enough houses, we don't have enough jobs, we can't make good money here, and so forth. I'm just wondering, what can be done? And I lost my train of thought completely.
You're asked about the pallet shelters
Yes. So what can be done in this budget? Like when I look at the budget, I'm looking like, okay, this program was successful. Where is it in the budget that they're going to continue to do this? Just like with housing, I see $30 million for housing, and you want to do affordable housing, but it has to be built and all of that. So where and you were going to do garages or parking garages where people in cars could park, so that, I'm just trying to figure out what you're planning to do and handle that going forward.
So some of that, almost all of that money you will find if you look in neighborhood development in the budget book and in there. Pallet shelters are a great short-term fix. They can only be used for 180 days a year, according to the insurance commissioner. It was my hope that, and it is still my hope, that we can talk them into allowing us to put up pallet shelters in the heat of summer as well, when it just gets too darn hot for people. But that's going to take changes in Raleigh and a buy-in from the insurance commissioner. And even that then becomes, where do we put them? Because in the winter we have them on the ball field, at the old recreation center. that ball field's not used in the winter. In the summer it is. There's quite a bit of infrastructure in terms of electricity and plumbing and things underground. So we have to look at what that investment is for that short-term summer use. But it's something we're looking at. All those housing programs, all those housing dollars are located within the neighborhood development budget.
And I'll just add, you might remember from the presentation that we have a dedicated portion of our property tax for the Nussbaum Fund.
Right.
That's the Nussbaum Housing Fund for all intents and purposes. So a lot of the housing assistance and support programs are in that separate fund. That can also be found in the same community services area. But it is administered by the neighborhood development.
And that's not nearly what it needs to be. The one thing that I was going to add about, in general, about this presentation of the budget is just for a point of reference. We're saying one, and I'm looking at Larry or John to confirm, 1 penny of property tax equates to roughly $3 million. Is that correct?
Actually, a little bit more, right?
3.7.
$3.7 million in the budget. So just to get your mind wrapped around when there's, a difference in pay, or when when we moved from $15 an hour to starting pay, et cetera. That's how you figure out the property tax. It's for every $3.7 million we spend, we got to find a penny somewhere.
And Councilmember Thurman, the speaker spoke about the safe parking program. Next Tuesday night at City Council, we'll be making awards to city employees for innovative ideas that were implemented during the year. And I guess I can say it because she knows, right?
She knows.
Liz Alverson, who works in housing and neighborhood development, is getting an award for managing the safe parking program, which was implemented this past year, which allows people an opportunity to have a safe place if they are temporarily having to live in their car. It provides them a place to park with lighting, security, and so forth.
Ideally, we'd like to not have anybody in their car, but it's the reality of at least they can park in a safe place rather than someplace where...
One more question for you.
I'll try. Oh, yeah, wait a minute. She has a question.
I am a city employee, and my question is, y'all gave the raise, what was it, last year? There was a raise. But our insurance and stuff goes up. So we right back in the same space. So I'm just wondering, what are y'all plans for us city employees? Parking with, I work in solid waste.
I don't think, council hasn't seen any numbers yet at all. So I can't tell you what the plans are. Maybe budget can give us more input of what they're working with or what's going on. We haven't seen any numbers at all yet for this
I'll
upcoming
just
budget.
speak generally. Over the past 6 years, I believe, we've given employee raises every year. Over the past 3 years, generally, employees have seen somewhere around 21% increase. Is that right?
In some departments.
Yeah.
Not every department.
Not every department, but all departments at least 12%. This is not justification, this is an explanation of salary compensation increases. We have also seen real cost increases related to insurance, right? Both from what we have to pay for health care as the city, we're self-insured, so we pay for our own health expenses. And also from what employees have to pay for the premiums. But if your salary goes up 5% and your health insurance premiums go up 5%, those are two very different numbers because your salary is going to be way more than that monthly premium. So that's not an excuse, but you can't equate the two because I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but we look at that. We look at what is the expected monthly impact to an employee from an insurance rate increase. How does that compare to the expected compensation increase?
Yeah, well, we have insurance rate increases. We have those that rent, they have the cost of living in.
Oh, yes, absolutely, yeah.
You can't go to the grocery store with $100 and come out with 3 bags, so it's a lot of increases. And 4% for what they giving us.
And that's been part of the reason and consideration for the compensation increases that we've seen over the last 3 years, especially because as we've seen inflationary increases.
Ask for a bond where they give another penny, so you'll get some money.
We think, Larry, pay salaries on
Bonds are
bonds.
for big projects,
Yeah.
not.
I do want to say for context, for both city and non-city employees alike, our goal every year is that you pay about a quarter of the cost of your insurance, and the city pays about 3/4. And we think that's pretty darn good compared to some other employers. That's what we try to do, and we get pretty darn close every year. But as insurance, as John said, we're self-insured, so the money you pay goes right into paying your bills when you go to the doctor. We're not with Aetna or Humana. We are self-insured. We pay our own insurance bills, and so what we try to do is essentially say, you as an employee, you cover 1/4 of that, and we're going to make the taxpayer cover 3/4 of that. Now, you still can be a lot of money, but we think that's a pretty competitive balance.
I have a question about COVID money. We're hearing that a lot of cities still have COVID money that they haven't used. And I'm wondering, do you still have COVID money left over? How much is it? And what can it be used for? Because, can it be used for some of these home insecurities? Can it be used to maybe give the city workers a one-time bonus so that they're not having an issue with paying their insurance? So that's my question.
And we actually did. That was one of the first things we did with COVID money a couple of years ago, is we used it for one-time bonuses for city employees. There's millions of it that's been allocated for housing. Yes, we have not spent it all. Council has approved its expenditure, so we've got it budgeted for a variety of projects. But no, it'll be a couple of years before it's all spent out.
But it's all allocated.
It is all allocated, yes.
How much do you guys have, though?
I honestly don't know. I just know we have not spent it all. But it has all been allocated.
It's not spent, it's allocated, so.
Yeah.
It's not.
Council has, we took a list of projects to council, and council approved that list.
And the a good percentage of it went to housing.
Oh, yeah.
Eviction assistance, et cetera.
Several $1 million went to housing.
I have one question. I will yell and I can go there. So I guess someone's like watching in. They shared with me, you've got the ARPA funds, which is like a second bucket of money. There's also a home ARPA that was started by Stan Wilson that helped to bring some funding around some housing specific things. I'm curious if you know more about that or what might have been allocated around that so far, or if there's funds within that.
I'll defer to Larry on that.
We can add that to Leo's list, and we'll put details in it. But yeah, there was also a separate transit ARP allocation. So several $1 million came to us directly for transit. That's all it could be used for. So there were some specific things the federal government said, this is just for this is just for that. And home.
How much of that might be allocated already?
I'm sorry, I don't. But we'll get that on the. You're going to post the answers to this, right?
Yeah, that's our goal, is to get the best answers we can for all these questions. I do know from the specific, at least for the emergency rental assistance, utility assistance, that was restricted just for that use, and I believe all that money. That money was used pretty quickly.
Yeah, it was like $12 or $13 million, I believe. Specifically
just for
rental and utilities. So you couldn't have used that for any of the other stuff anyway.
I don't think so.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
But then of the general fund, we've also used a chunk of that towards assistance.
Right. Yeah.
Of the general ARPA funds that we received.
Yes.
Oh. Yeah, I'd like to see that. Just because, we're talking about safest city. That's number 10. And so we cannot wage and build our way out of this. Not in the way that I'm hearing it. And I just want to know, I know the legislative folks came to the retreat, but I missed if there was a conversation around RICU, where we have, say it again? Oh, RICU, the rental inspection certification for each unit that is out for rental. We've been canvassing, and even here in District 5, where complexes have a lot of open units because they're in abatement, they need to be fixed. And we've got a lot of folks who have Section 8 vouchers who need units, and if those, the RICU was used to make sure that those units were up to snuff, then we would have a lot more units online. And then I know that currently there is a fight for rent control, but I really hope that like the municipalities together and the counties together in North Carolina can come together and hopefully start to really pressure the state, because like I'm hearing, this is a statewide issue, but we are feeling it. And so, yeah, I hope that we can get RICU and rent control to help keep these units online.
One of the things that is on our priority list that we gave to the state legislature is we strongly feel that the state needs a Department of Housing to address all of these types of issues and assist cities, because cities we can't do it ourselves. We can't do it on the backs of the taxpayers.
And we can't legally do it.
And we're not legally allowed to do any of that now. But the state needs to come to the table, and we have put quite a bit of pressure. It is on our legislative agenda. And I think that the mayor has coordinated with mayors and other cities throughout to push for this. I think not much is going to change between now and November, and I think a lot of that we have to wait and see what happens in November.
And not to speak on behalf of council, since the council member is here, but that rental unit inspection, we were innovative in creating that a number of years ago. The state stepped in and disallowed
Said we can't do it.
Yeah, they took it away from us.
What we can still do, and what we encourage folks to do, is we still have minimum housing standards. We still have code that must be met. And back to some of your earlier questions about letting folks know about their rights and understanding what the resources are, that's one of the key things with both our landlord-tenant dispute program as well as our housing code enforcement officers as well, so making sure that the spaces people are living in are safe.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming tonight. I appreciate your time and your interest, and I know the budget folks do too, because sometimes they work in a little bit of a vacuum and don't get to hear from the citizens that they're really helping to support when they're putting together budgets. So I think it really helps to bring everybody together to talk. And, I appreciate your input and your questions. They'll be posting answers. If you take a minute before you leave and kind of peruse this board and make sure, I know it's a little hard because we were an active group, but make sure that your concern is on there. If you didn't get an answer, please make sure.
You all do get the gold star for the most covered board of comments and questions.
Yes! We're a small but mighty group.
If you didn't sign in, please go ahead and sign in for those who came in a little late.
Quick question, just if I understand the budget.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
I'm sorry, I always know you as well. I never knew you as Meg.
So, fixed cost for.
Oh, really?